Margaret. I'm one of the dietitians at Rex, and as part of my high protein lunch presentation, I actually want to show you a really easy high protein lunch pre-prep ahead. So we're going to be making banh mi bowls, and originally the recipe called for pork banh mi, but I think you can use whatever ground meat you want. So I actually have 93.7 ground beef right here. I have 1 pound of that, but if you prefer, you can do a pound of lean ground chicken, lean ground turkey, or a pound of lean ground pork. My dog is helping me today. So I want to gather all my ingredients. I do have the pound of meat. It's already in a sprayed pan that I'm going to put on the oven in just a second. I have 3 cloves of garlic minced. I have a 1/4 cup of Greek yogurt, 2 teaspoons of sriracha. I have a 1/4 cup of coconut aminos, but what I actually did is I did an 1/8 cup of coconut aminos and then an 1/8 cup of soy sauce, and that's going to be part of our marinade. I have a tablespoon of cornstarch, 1 teaspoon of ground minced ginger, and then some lime juice. I have an onion that I'm going to add to my cauliflower rice, and then I have all the veggies, including the cauliflower rice, that we're going to put together in the bowl. So the first thing I want to do, I'm going to take my ground beef, and I'm actually going to come over to the stove, and I'm going to turn that on over medium heat. While I'm over here, I'm also going to prep my pan for my cilantro lime cauliflower rice. So I'm just going to spray this with canola oil, and I'm going to go ahead and turn this on medium low because my pan tends to get a little bit hot. Now we're going to come back over and we're going to prep our veggies. So the first veggie we're going to need is the onion for the cilantro lime cauliflower rice. So I know a lot of people don't like cauliflower rice, but my secret to cauliflower rice is that you have to doctor it up. You can't just eat cauliflower ground up as rice and think it's going to taste like rice. It's not. It's going to taste like cauliflower. But what I like to do is I like to add some chopped up onion, I like to add some garlic, I like to add some cilantro, some lime juice, and make it just like a chipotle cilantro lime rice. So first I'm going to chop the onion. Let me get the ugly sides off. So I've cut the onion in half, and so I put the flat side down. I'm going to run my knife sideways through this, and then start to go horizontally across the onion. And then I'm going to come the other way and go vertically across the onion until we get to the end of the onion. And then I'm going to do the same thing for the other half. Now we have 1 chopped onion, and I'm going to add this to the skillet for my cilantro lime rice. And we'll just kind of stir that around, and we'll let it kind of come to temperature, start to let the onions get a little bit clear first. So we have the ground beef cooking in 1 skillet. We have the onions for the cauliflower rice cooking in the other skillet. Now we're going to make the marinade. So the marinade consists of, like I said, the coconut aminos and the soy sauce, and I did low sodium soy sauce. We have the teaspoon of ground ginger that I'm going to mix in. And then we have the tablespoon of cornstarch. And what this cornstarch is doing is it's actually going to thicken the sauce and allow the sauce to stick to the meat. And we'll just whisk that up really well. And we have a marinade, so I'll set that off to the side. Now it's time to chop our veggies for the bowls. So I actually took a shortcut and I purchased the pre-shredded carrots. It's not that hard to shred carrots, especially if you have a good food processor, but I took a shortcut. Remember, if you're having a rough week, it's always okay to take a shortcut. The other thing we need to chop up is the cucumber. So I have a seedless cucumber. That's just my personal preference, but you may be able, maybe you have a green thumb, and maybe you can grow cucumber in your own backyard. That would be perfect to use. So we're just cutting this into thin slices, and probably enough for every bowl to have about 4 to 6 slices of cucumber, however you prefer. So I have some prepped cucumbers over here. And then this is the optional part. We do have a jalapeno that we're going to chop up and add to the bowl as well, just for some heat. Now, if you don't like heat, you do not have to do this. So this is completely optional. If you don't want to do heat, by all means, you could You could do a bell pepper, especially I think a red bell pepper would be really good with this, maybe an orange bell pepper. So we're just gonna slice the jalapeno, and that's just gonna give some pizzazz to our recipe. I probably won't use all these jalapenos, that's a lot of jalapeno. And remember, if you don't like spicy, take out the seeds. So if you don't want to go completely bell pepper, use the jalapeno, but take out the seeds. So our onions for the cauliflower rice are actually getting a little bit clear. They're actually getting a little bit crispy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the frozen cauliflower rice. Again, by all means, you can rice your own cauliflower, or if you need to, take a shortcut. That's absolutely fine. So these cauliflower rice bags were 2 for $6 this week, so I'm going to go ahead and cook up both of these. You might not need it for all these recipes, but you can always have it alongside, some taco meat, make yourself a burrito bowl sometime this week. So it's always best to overcook your side dishes. So I'm going to add the cauliflower rice to the skillet with the cooked onion in there. And then this frozen cauliflower is going to release some moisture as it cooks. And so we do want to keep stirring it, but it's going to release so much moisture it's not going to actually burn. So my ground beef has already cooked all the way. There's no longer any pink. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to add in my 3 cloves of garlic, and I'm going to let that cook for another 2 to 3 minutes until the garlic is fragrant. So my garlic is nice and fragrant. It smells like we're cooking beef and garlic in here. So now we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna add in the marinade. Now before we do that, I'm turning the heat down to really low. All right, so we're turning it down to the lowest heat, and then we're going to add in the marinade. Stir that around really well. And basically we're waiting for that meat to absorb the moisture and the taste of that marinade. Let me stir the cauliflower rice since I'm over here. And now the final step we want to do before we assemble these bowls is to make the Sriracha Drizzle sauce. So this is going to add, again, a little bit of heat, but it's also going to add a little bit of creaminess and a little bit of freshness. So the Sriracha Drizzle sauce, we've lightened this recipe up by using 1/4 cup of 2% Greek yogurt. So I'm using 2% plain Fage Greek yogurt. I'm going to go ahead and add that into my bowl. Next, I'm adding 2 teaspoons of sriracha. So that's a fair amount of sriracha. By all means, I would potentially dial that down to 1 teaspoon or 1/2 teaspoon if you need to. And then because Greek yogurt, this recipe originally called for mayonnaise. Greek yogurt we know is a little bit more solid than mayonnaise. And so just to make this sauce a little bit thinner, I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of lime juice. So I'm mixing in that lime juice, and I'm going to whisk that all together. And that's just going to make our little dollop of Sriracha Drizzle. So we'll put a little bit of this on every bowl that we make, and taste this to your preferences, okay? If you want it to be spicier, by all means, add more Sriracha. Not so much a fan, I would cut back to a little bit less, or maybe use a more mild spicy sauce if you want to. Now the final thing I want to chop up for our bowls is actually some fresh cilantro. And I know cilantro is a very polarizing food. You either love it or you hate it. So again, if you don't want to use cilantro, you don't have to. I think green onions would be a perfect substitution for cilantro. But I'm going to cut up some cilantro because in my house we actually do like cilantro. So this cilantro, as soon as I get it home from the grocery store, I rinse it off and I put it in a cup of water. And that's going to keep it fresher. And then store that in your fridge. So I'm going to put that right back over there. And then with cilantro, I like to pull out any of the larger stems that are in there. But with cilantro, all I do is I just run my knife through. It doesn't have to be beautiful. It doesn't have to be perfect. I just like to run my knife through and make sure it's all chopped up. And so we're doing some cilantro for the bowls, and then you can also do more cilantro for the rice if you want to. So since we are almost at that end point, let's come over to the cauliflower rice. turn the heat off. I'm actually gonna remove this from the heat. And I'm going to stir in 1 tablespoon of lime juice. And again, that's just to give it some freshness, some acidity with it, so it's not just plain cauliflower rice. And then what I'm also going to do, just because I like to, I'm going to add some pepper on there. So I'm not going to add any salt because that's going to boost the sodium content, but I am going to add some pepper just for flavor. So now that we have everything cooked, now it's just time to meal prep our bowls. So we have about enough meat for 4 servings, and that's going to be 1/3 cup serving, so about 3 ounces of meat. And then we have enough cilantro lime rice. I ended up adding cilantro at the last minute, sorry. Cilantro lime rice, like I said, we're making a little bit more because this can be used with other meals this week. So to measure everything out, I'm going to go ahead and get out my trusty bowl or Tupperware container. We're putting in about 1/3 cup of the meat. Then we're going to come over and we're going to get out 1/2 cup of the cauliflower rice. And then we're going to come over to the carrots. We're going to serve ourselves about 1/4 cup of carrots. And of course, remember guys, you can always do less veggies if you know this is going to fill you up too much. And then the final thing is just going to be the cucumber slices. So I'm putting about 4 cucumber slices in each bowl. And I'm going to go ahead and put in 2 slices of jalapeno, a little bit of cilantro on top. And then the final thing is that Sriracha Drizzle. So we're going to have about 1 tablespoon per bowl. And so I'm just going to drizzle that over top of everything. And here we go. Here's a lunch for the week. So if you wanted to, you could eat this all cold together. I know that sounds weird, but that actually is really good. Or if you wanted to, you could also keep the cucumbers separate and then heat everything together and then just throw the cucumbers on top later on. Whichever you prefer. I wouldn't recommend microwaving cucumbers though, that doesn't sound too good. But this is gonna be a really easy meal. I mean, I just threw all this together, 4 meals worth in about 30 minutes. So really easy meal to throw together, high protein, low carb, very easy. So give it a try, it's really delicious.